What is up, guys? Welcome to the Lunch Table Podcast. For this episode, we are reviewing a new show on Netflix that just came out recently, starring Wong and Steven Yeun, called Beef. It is the strangest, saddest, and funniest show that I have watched so far. But Akram, I know you just watched it, so let me know your thoughts.
I'm so glad you recommended this to me because I must say this is one of my favorite, I think, mini-series out there. It's so, I think, relatable in a sense, and also I think it's a great showcase of holding grudges and what that can do to you and how your life can be destroyed. I love how each character has their own respect. I love how they get enough time to actually see their psyche and whatnot. It was a great show, hands down. I think you guys should check it out. But let's get started with you.
Right from the get-go, it starts off with just this traumatic event, and it kind of, it feels relatable to a lot of people. Like everybody just has like this one event that just leaves such an impact on them, and there's always like somebody out there that we just can't stand, and we kind of like in the back of our mind wish we could just like strangle them or something.
Yeah.
It's so raw and it's so nuanced at the same time. There's such a great like artistic feeling to the show, and literally too. I mean, the intros for the show are all from David Choe, who plays the cousin in the show too. It's just a great vibe, and it really talks about like rage, like you said, and just all this pent up anger. And it's centered around these two characters. We have Amy and we have Danny. And they start off in this parking lot. They have this kind of intense road rage battle that, people are getting on their iPhones. And it kind of just sets this stage for this whole show, right? And it just continues to escalate. And it really shows us like what happens when we don't make peace and we just like put aside our pride. Also, I just love the diversity of this cast. So many great Asian actors. Young Mazino, Justin Min from Umbrella Academy was in the show. Joseph Lee, Ashley Park. Great cast.
Yeah, they were wonderful. I always like, because I feel like, Asians need to get more representation in the media. I really do. And I always like seeing these type of shows. Because obviously I don't have an Asian family. The only Asian I know is you, and we already have beef. But it's so cool to see just like the culture, especially like Americanized. It's really fun to see. But also I think in a sense that this is somewhat a sort of kind of love story as well. Danny's trying to take care of his brother, Paul. Amy, she has a daughter and a husband. But I like that hate kind of comes from within. It comes from something that you didn't do in the past that you wish you would have done, or your upbringing. And so I like how they give time to certain flashbacks, and they actually show like, oh, these two people are kind of screwed in a way. They have their own motivations. It's very realistic, and then now we could kind of understand why they're taking it this far. And it's still hilarious because again, the show's not called Rage, it's called Beef, and it's just like a really funny show. I like it. And you know what it reminds me of too? The color grading especially reminds me of Everything Everywhere All at Once, and some choices they make. It's really interesting, and then plus that was like an Asian-led cast as well,
right?
So it's kind of cool, and it's from A24. There you go. It's really great.
Sung Jin made a lot of like artistic choices in this show, and it was so great on screen. And yeah, it feels at first like when you watch the first episode, it's gonna be like one of these like, shows like maybe like You, like it's just like this down to earth, and you think it's just going to be like this small feud that happens. But as it progresses, you start realizing that there's like a bigger theme,
right?
Or themes. It's talking about how to deal with rage, and these two characters are so it's funny because they hate each other. They hate their guts so much, but they're so alike. And there was even one scene where like they had a meeting in a parking lot, and this guy was like backing up behind them, and they just started like simultaneously shouting at the guy.
Right.
So it's like they have like such a similar distaste, right, for the things in life. And maybe it's kind of like a I love to hate, but I also hate to love. Like in a way, like it started out like just as this like fight, but then it's like this feud that keeps going on just is like the only outlet they have for their kind of like their anger for like their life choices in a way. Because like Danny, he's a contractor per se, right? He deals in construction. He does like odd jobs, and like you said, he's trying to support his brother. But he just makes so many like horrible decisions, and it's like he kind of like takes it out on himself because he's trying to buy land for his parents and build a house for them. So he's kind of like the man of the house, right, for his little brother. And Amy, she's you made a great point when we were talking earlier. She's kind of like this breadwinner for her family. Even though like her husband was like this son of like a Japanese like artist. But Amy kind of like runs this company, so she's kind of like, you know, the provider for the family, but she's kind of disillusioned with her, you know, her lifestyle too, and she ends up having an affair with Danny's brother too. Kind of in a way, maybe it's like a power dynamic. So they're so toxic, but at the same time, it makes you so sad. It's like watching like like there's funny moments in the show, but it's like watching a tragedy, like a comedic tragedy in a way.
Yeah. Well, art too. I like how this is surrounded on artists as well. And like arts can be some form of escapism, but there isn't really an escape here. No matter, yeah, I mean, she can't really escape her home. She's again disillusioned with her husband. And I feel bad for him as well because he is just this really sweet guy and doesn't deserve, of course, this affair and doesn't deserve all this drama and stuff like that. But at the end of the day, I guess she wants more of a man in this relationship, and she has to inherit masculine traits. And that's why I think they're really similar, Amy and Danny, because Danny, again, he has to be kind of like the man in the house. But by the end, we actually see that I think rage is genderless, and I think being unified is genderless as well, and like recognizing your flaws. And actually you guys have a lot more in common. One other thing I like here is that there's this mention of, not mention, but I think it's kind of like some people know this, like Koreans and Japanese people, they kind of have like a beef from the past.
There's
like
a cultural like dissidence. Yeah,
right. But what I find really, and what's really cool is that this is a primarily, you know, Asian cast with different backgrounds and different countries that they come from. But in a way, they're still kind of the same if they just sit down and they actually discuss things and their flaws and whatnot. And that's why I think that this was like a well-rounded show by the end. And the end was very, I'd say, the most artsy of the whole thing.
It was so surreal.
It was surreal, right? Just like art. And it was like, I think they relied more on the emotional action, especially at the end. And there were some things that were left out, but I think it was on purpose, of course, to center on this theme. And it was beautifully done, I must say.
I think the theme for this show is probably communication in a way.
Yeah.
Because had Danny just, you know, stepped out, or Amy, if one of them had just stopped to apologize or just talk it out, right? I'm sure, because look at the end of the episode, they got along so well, even if they were like high as fuck. But they went from being like mortal enemies to like so close, like almost like brother and sister at the end of the episode, right? And I feel like even in their personal lives, just being honest could have prevented so much mistakes from happening. And I feel like in a way, like having Asian centric cast talks a lot about like issues too. Like there's this like cultural what do you call it? There's an issue amongst Asian families. It's like you can't really like discuss your feelings, especially like with your parents too, because you'll be seen as like weak, and you kind of have to harbor that and bottle it up, right? So I feel like in a way that's what happened with these two characters. That's all they knew, was how to bottle up their anger. And once it explodes, right, it kind of like stings everybody in a way. Yeah,
that's a great point. Yeah, absolutely. I'd say communication. I wish it's not going to happen in reality, but I wish that there was like something culturally in this country where we can hash things out in some center where it becomes kind of like this echo chamber, but an echo chamber of understanding. Because I feel like the desert was so isolated, where this was the one spot where they have nothing, right? They just have each other and they have to rely on each other. I think that was the perfect instance how to now make these people into lifelong friends, hopefully. I don't know if there's some people who'll ship these two as a couple, but whatever floats your boat. No, great cast, honestly, and a great show, hands down.
Yeah, it was so good, and even just like the culture references, the the soundtrack, like the 2000s,
Ooh,
like
yeah.
choice of songs were awesome. It was just like so nostalgic, and it's a really fun show, guys. Like give it a watch if you get a chance, because man, it talks about so many issues, and it's so, like we said, like artistic. It's so funny. I think anybody who watches the show can somehow relate to it on like a more humanistic level. And it talks about a lot of like interpersonal stuff that we go through as, day to day, beings being so busy with, family and life and jobs and everything. It's so relatable. But yeah, it was an awesome show. I had to give it a 10 out of 10 for me. How would you rate it?
10 out of 10. Yeah, absolutely. Because if you didn't give it a 10 out of 10, we would have beef, cheesy as that sounds. But that is our review for Beef. Again, now streaming on Netflix. Go check that out, please. Do yourself a favor. Guys, we're so busy this week. My goodness, Dylan, I am so stressed. I bet you are too. We have a couple. We actually are going to review Dead Ringers this Friday. We have a lot of movies we're going to review this weekend. The Mandalorian, at the time of this recording, will finish tomorrow. So expect a review for season 3 in general. And then, of course, next week is going to be awesome. But Dylan, take us away.
Yeah, check out all our content that we have already. We have so many movies, so many shows that we covered this month and last month. Like Akram said, we have so much more planned for the rest of the month. But yeah, check us out on wherever you listen to your podcast, Instagram, TikTok, Apple Podcasts, Anchor, so many other platforms. But yeah, guys, make sure to like and subscribe. Or we'll come to your house and piss on your bathroom floor.
I'm going to whip it out already, all right?
Akram will spray on your car.
Right, I'm like a cat, all right?
But thank you guys so much, and until then, thanks for every lunch with us.
See you guys.